Hey, Chica. Welcome to the Lovelda Show Women of Power podcast. The show where women share their personal power tools, the techniques, strategies, and ways of being which have enabled their business and life success. I'm your host, Lovelda Vincenzi, a female speaker mentor, speaker, and event host on a mission to unleash authentic, powerful female voices onto the world. In today's episode, we'll be uncovering the power tools of Antoinette Dale Henderson. Antoinette is a keynote speaker, executive coach, and founder of the Gravitas program, and was recently featured in Forbes magazine talking about her new book, Power Up. A fellow of the Professional Speaking Association and TEDx speaker, she's regularly invited to deliver keynotes and speaks on panels about gravitas, leadership, and promoting the cause of women in business. She's author of 2 books, Leading with Gravitas and Power Up, which this year was nominated for the Business Book Awards. In this episode, we'll talk about gravitas, what it is, and how to use it to its best effect. Now remember, all links shared in the show can be found in the show notes. The only way to ensure that you get your regular fix of this show is to click that subscribe button to make sure that you get updates as soon as a new show is added. Well, that is quite enough from me for now, so let's dive in and get on with the show. Hey, Chicas. Welcome back to another episode of the Lovelda Show Women of Power podcast. My name's Lovelda Vincenzi, and I am rocking a totes different hair vibe today because at the time of recording this show, if you're not watching live on, if you're not watching on the YouTube channel, click the link in the show notes just to see it, and you can let me know whether or not I should be styling this or just let it go. But honestly, at the time of recording this, there's this virus. I can't even be bothered to talk about it anymore. Covering the whole of the planet, just running havoc, which means that us girls cannot get to the hair salons. So, needs must. So I'm in between hairdos. Let me just put it that way, in between hairdos. But anywho's, enough about me, just in case you were interested in what I was styling today or #not styling. I just thought I'd give you a little heads up. But anywho's, let's get on with today's show. My guest today is a TEDx speaker, 2-time author and professional speaker, loving it. I please welcome today Antoinette Dale Henderson, otherwise known as, if you catch her traveling via Southeast Asia at any point, you may be calling her Internet. But I shall let her explain Antoinette / Internet. Which name and why? Why?
Oh, why? So thank you. Thanks, Lovelda. It's lovely to be here. And my name, it's always been a bit of a bane of my life. I remember when I was learning how to spell it when I was at primary school, I was the last child in the class to figure out how to actually spell my name. 10 letters. People always get it wrong. And then when I was traveling in Southeast Asia, people just could not wrap their heads around what Antoinette actually was. So in the end, I just learned to say, look, just call me Internet. And they loved that. They used to fall about laughing, and then they'd never forget my name. And that became my thing, Internet Dale Henderson.
Do you know what? I think sometimes we've got to be able to sort of laugh at ourselves a bit. It's funny because I was looking at something the other day with my husband, and somebody created this new program and it had the longest name ever. And he said, I learned that the first time when I think his first business is something like Your Power to Shine or something. It was like this long ass name and people were forever spelling it wrong. When you've got a long business name and it's dot and it just goes on forever. And he goes, I could never get my emails.
Sort of overcomplicating your life unnecessarily.
So his company's now called Growing Together Exponentially, but they've shortened it to GTEX, GETX, right? That's it.
We need, isn't it? Why complicate our lives?
So it's not to say your name. I love your name. I think you've got a really beautiful name. But sometimes we've got to come up with ways of just making it easier for people to remember us in a business kind of context. So I just thought it was kind of amusing that you could laugh at yourself a little bit, call yourself Internet. I was like, that's quite funny. I have people do it to me sometimes as well when I'm introducing them for stage. They'll have little nicknames that they have, or
give us an example.
Oh, girl, how did I know you was going to put me on the spot?
Well, do you know what? You put it out there.
they've just had like interesting ways in which they've broken their name down phonetically. I can't remember one off the top of the top of my head right now, but they've given me a really good way of saying, oh, like, think of it like a tour and then and put those together. And that's really helped me sort of remember, especially when you're in countries where, different languages have a natural tendency to put letters together differently. And sometimes I look at names and I go, in English, we don't put those letters together. Like I have no frame of reference, because in English, we would never take those letters and put them together, but you're Polish and that's kind of natural. We don't use Z a lot. It's not a letter that we use a lot. Those letters at the end of the alphabet, they don't show up so much. There's a few of them that they're there, but there aren't very many words that use them. So when you start putting that next to a letter that we use quite often, I'm kind of like, I don't know how to deal with
messes with your brain. Yeah. But then I suppose as an MC, when you're introducing people, you need to pronounce the name right. So it's no wonder it's something you've got little knacks and techniques to be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, just saying it over and over and over and over again until it sticks is normally a really good one. I send people voice notes too. Like, hey, so about that name of yours.
Remind me again.
Do you mind just saying it? Because then I can listen to the recording over and over and I can write it down in a way I'll remember it. Because sometimes the way somebody else phonetically spells their name just doesn't quite sit. I would have spelt it kind of different, but I also send my name out phonetically, because my mother can't say my surname yet. It's quite amusing for me. I've tried correcting her. She hasn't quite fully got it. But I get it, because in English, we say the letters differently. My surname's Italian, so it's Vincenzi. But in English we'd say Vincenzi.
Yeah.
That's how we would put those letters together. But in Italian, C and E together is cha.
It's a gorgeous name. It's
so it works.
Yeah, very the V's you've got going on and the Z's and the C's. It's fabulous.
I mean, I love it. My maiden name was hardly so sexy, so we had to spruce it up. Anyhows, darling, this is not a program about me, okay?
I'm very good, actually. I'm very good at flipping it back to the interviewer. I'll try and stay focused on me.
This time, girl, we're going to let you be in the limelight for a moment, if that's okay with you, if you don't mind a little light in your eye, a little bit of light in your eye. So tell me, you run a company called, you run a program called Gravitas. Tell me a bit about that, because like when we spoke about it before, it super excited me, because it's totally aligned to the sort of stuff that I'm up to, with really this idea of voices and being powerful, but you've got a slightly different kind of angle. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Of course, yeah. So this is a program that I've been running for about 12 years now. And so I have a background in communications, in PR. And so during that time when I was working in the corporate world, it was all about helping brands to become famous and creating campaigns that would make brands sell. And then when I set my business up about 13 years ago, I thought I want to be able to do the same for people as I have for brands. And so I thought, well, I don't want to just create or use other people's programs or other people's strategies. I want to create something brand new. And that's when I focused on that word gravitas.
Love that word.
And the reason why that has been a word that's been very personal to me all the way through is because when I was 27 years old, and I was working in a PR company, my manager sat me down and said to me, Antoinette, for you to progress and to become a senior leader within this organization, what you need to do is you need to work on your gravitas. The trouble was he didn't actually tell me what gravitas was or how to go about actually doing that. And so I kind of felt like I was a bit kind of stuck and prevented from progressing. And so that word stayed in my brain. And I then, of course, I did get promoted, and then I went traveling and became Internet.
Became Internet.
Right, that's it. www. And then I started coaching senior leaders in organisations, and I remember one particular day where I had 3 coaching sessions all in a row, and each person came in, sat down, and said, Antoinette, I'm being told I need to work on my gravitas. Do you know what that is, or what I'm supposed to do to go and find this magical thing, find my G-spot, as it were. So I thought, okay, let's think about this. And so that became my thing. I remember that night just waking up in the middle of the night, and I'm going to find out what gravitas is, and I'm going to turn it into a program that people can learn and develop and truly access their own version of gravitas. Mm-hmm. And so that's how it all started.
That's incredible.
So now I guess, yeah. So,
I mean, now I'm going to ask the obvious question though, right? What the heck is gravitas?
I thought I'd just use a little pause there to give you the opportunity to ask.
I'm like, okay. you can't talk to us about this word all this time, and how many people are asking about it. And I'm now like on the end of my seat, just like, what is it? Tell me.
Right. Okay. So gravitas is the ability, in my definition, is the ability to command respect, get taken seriously, and stand out from the crowd. And when you have gravitas, that is what is going to accelerate your potential. So for those people who are wanting to move into leadership positions, or for those people who are wanting to step onto a stage, it's really important to be able to connect with your own gravitas, because it then enables you to have that inner confidence. And the word itself, so I started when I thought, right, I'm going to figure out what this thing is. I started with the word itself, and it's a really, really old word. It's a Latin word, and it's actually got two different components to it. And so the word itself has got a huge amount of meaning and learning within it. So it's got the word gravis, and the word gravis in Latin means weight. Right?
Okay.
So this is about having a level of groundedness and weight that anchors you to the floor, and means that whatever craziness is going on, and we're surrounded by craziness right now, whatever is going on, whatever challenges we're facing, we can still stay grounded. It's funny, whenever I describe it like that, you can hear my voice just starts to go down.
Yeah.
The energy goes down. And so that's one part of the word. And then the second part of the word, which is a totally different energy, is the word vita. And vita means life. And so gravitas has within it that sense of weight, but also the energy of life. And again, when it comes to commanding respect, being taken seriously, standing out from the crowd, having that inner confidence, it's about connecting with that inner life force and that inner energy that we all have within us, but we often, particularly during challenging times, we get disconnected from. So it's connecting with the two components of what gravitas is. If you boil it down, ultimately that's what it is. And when we do that, we will have gravitas.
Love it. Do you think, because I completely love this idea of commanding respect. It might have to do with my mother always was about make sure that you command respect. Not that I knew what that was. She never used the word gravitas, but I suppose they're exactly, there's a from what you've described, there's definitely a link in between those things. Do you think that there's a difference between how women show gravitas versus men, or is it the behavior is kind of consistent in order to, is it a thing to achieve or a thing to receive?
Ooh. Okay, so two parts of the question. So when it comes to gravitas, is there a difference between masculine and feminine gravitas? I think actually gravitas is unique for every single individual. And so what your definition of gravitas might be, and the way that you show up and the way that you connect with your gravitas is going to be quite different from somebody else. Okay, and it doesn't have to be a gender thing.
Yeah.
But men and women have very different relationships with that word gravitas. And traditionally, gravitas was very much a masculine, a statesman-like quality. So it was traditionally very much a male thing. So if you think about sort of alpha males, the sort of mad men kind of reaching for the drinks trolley, and the sort of the Mad Men style of silver-haired foxes whose gravitas has sort of emerged like a fine wine over the years.
Yeah.
That's like the old school version of gravitas. Whereas actually my take on it is that if it's about commanding respect, getting taken seriously and standing out from the crowd, of course we all, however we identify, whether we're men or women, we all have the right to develop it.
Yeah.
But we will all express it in different ways. And so this isn't about women learning how to be men. You know how, they trained Margaret Thatcher to lower her voice and to, essentially show up more manly, more like a man. This isn't about emulating those male qualities. It's about actually tapping into the full range of different ways of communicating and energies, both for men and for women.
I love that. There's like an authenticity that sits behind it versus, because you can look at these things and say, oh, okay, so it's about commanding respect, and then almost systemize it to the point where respectful looks like deep voice, looks like speaking slowly, looks like, and there's all these things that fall into it. But like you say, when you take that on, to interpret it in that way, often the thing that gets missed is my life force, because if that's not naturally,
right,
those things may need tweaking. There's moments I had the feedback, it was like, girl, Lovelda, speak slower, you speak too quick. So sometimes those things may need tweaking, but to take all of it away, then it's not me speaking anymore. It's not authentic to who I am, and commanding respect by becoming somebody other than who you are is, I don't know that I could buy that.
No, I completely agree with you. And so then, having done the research and looked into what Gravitas is and turned it into a program that people could access and learn, I then created a model which broke it down into 6 different components. And one of the components of Gravitas is authenticity. And so that's our ability to be ourselves, but it's also be our, I know this is an overused term, but be our best self, right? Because I've worked with lots of leaders who say, oh, well, I'm just, being authentic, but they're authentically crashing around, upsetting people, bullying, being completely inappropriate, So it's about appropriateness as well.
I like that distinction because sometimes people want to keep owning, I'm gonna just say it as it is. Sometimes people want to keep owning shit that doesn't work and it doesn't land well. Like it's
right.
It's that. So when I love what you say there about getting really clear on being our best authentic self, because to want to embrace an authenticity that's just rude and arrogant is probably, it'll get you to a certain point, but that really all of who you are, and is that really the way that you'd like to show up in the world? So this idea of best authentic self, gold. Gold.
Yeah. So listen, Lovelda, I hope it's okay, but you might hear my daughter practicing her trumpet in like the room next door. Is that okay?
Can't hear a thing.
So this is me authentically showing up like in my office with my daughter doing her trumpet. So there we go. So it's not a recording studio, clearly, during lockdown. I think it's that authenticity thing, and it's, if we relate it to speakers and how we show up, it's what I find fascinating and actually quite sad is that what often happens is when we want to succeed at something, when we want to become something that we're currently not, what people often do is they look around and they look at all the people who are doing that thing well, and they think, right, okay, so for me to be successful, I need to do that thing and be like that person. So all of a sudden they stop being who they are. They stop connecting with their gravis, their weight and their groundedness and their life force, and they morph into a weird version of somebody else, which we know is not genuine. We can sense it. And so those speakers who go on stage and they're like, oh, I need to use body language, so I'm going to use body language. I'm really excited. And it's like, I wish that people would just learn how to express themselves on stage powerfully, but whilst acknowledging the brilliance of who they are first and building from there.
Just the way you said that, girl, that just, yum. I'm like, I just want to eat it up. Like the way that was said, just yum. You know, sometimes people say things in a way, and I just think that right there, that's what, like, that's just amazing. This idea of it's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Own the bits that are you, that are working, and take them to another extreme. And the things that's there that aren't quite working for you, tone them down. Like just, but what happens often is you can look at somebody else and you throw everything out. Like you throw out the fun part of your personality, and you throw out the quirkiness, or rather than kind of embracing it and allowing the full thing to emerge, like leaning into it fully. So people get to kind of, you know, just be more outrageous if you're naturally outrageous. Don't get rid of outrageous, own it. Own it, run with it, be it.
100%. It's funny, I remember, you just reminded me of a few years ago, I was doing it was a senior presentation skills course. It was authentic presentations, right, for a group of CEOs in the States. And there was this one guy who came in, and he was one of those silver-haired foxes that I was describing before. Very polished, extremely senior. And he had learnt to iron out every single verbal tick from his delivery style. So there was no ums, there was no ers, there was no hesitation, there was no so's, no likes, no, none of those things. And I'm not saying that those things are good. Obviously they're not good, because they will get in the way of our message, and they indicate when we're hesitating or we're unsure, and you know, they're the fillers that we don't need. But the point is that he had become a robot. He was just, he may as well have been just like a virtual reality bot. And so we had to start, we worked with these people for 4 days, and in a way we had to start by breaking the things that they'd learned, so that they could then get back to who they were and then build themselves up again from that place.
It's learning it's being able to take something and integrate it versus just slap it on you. You know, there's that difference between, oh, I'm going to put on this coat versus that's a nice coat. You know what, if I just nip it in at the sides a little bit, but otherwise you're wearing something that somebody else's, and it doesn't quite, I'm running with analogies. It just doesn't quite fit as beautifully as when you've taken it, you've molded it to you. You've not lost yourself in it. In fact, you've enhanced yourself as a result of it. But I completely understand what you mean. I've seen so many speakers, myself personally, who've lost themselves in the tools and the techniques and the ways of doing things, to the extent that I'm then going, girl, when I see you off stage, you're so funny. Like, why is none of that up there? Like, you're naturally really playful. Where did that I have playful you here who I love, and that person up, I don't know who that is. I'm not in love with them. I like you, I don't like them, which is weird because they're supposed to be the same person. But you seem to have left you at the side of the stage, and then this other thing arrives on the stage, and perhaps there's people who love them. I don't really resonate with those people either, because I like the person off the stage. And I think there is really this thing for us to learn about the authenticity and what that really means. And that's not, girls, please don't email me about how tools and stuff are important. I'm not pooping on them. They're very important to learn. It's just how you integrate those that I think I've watched personally. And, you know, clearly you've seen it as well, Antoinette, where people have just taken it a bit too far.
Yeah. And I understand it, you know, and I think I empathize with it, because it's something that, you know, I've experienced myself as well, right? You know, so there's two things. When people say, oh, just be yourself, just be yourself. And, you know, when we've done that thing where we've tried to conform, or we've looked at what's successful, and we emulate that and we model that, it's really difficult to then sort of peel back all of those extra bits of clothing, like you were saying, to then just reveal your naked self. You know, that is a really, really, really scary place to go, and it's particularly scary on stage, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that part of it, and I think the other part of it is, and I think this is a classic female thing, is when we're trying too hard.
Oh yeah.
You know, because so many of us are perfectionists, and we want it to be just perfect. And, you know, afterwards you come off the stage and we're like, oh God, I forgot that bit. Oh, I fluffed that line. Oh, I didn't use the right word. We try so hard. And when we are in that place of trying so hard, we start being present. And presence is another component of the Gravitas methodology. We stop being present, and then we stop connecting with the audience. We don't connect with ourselves, and we're basically just reading a script when that happens. And you know, that happens when we're trying too hard, or when we're nervous, and we're not okay with being ourselves.
What you're doing with Gravitas, darling, is so linked to this idea of power, because the two things just seem so intertwined. Like the ability to command respect, get attention, and be heard and listened to is a really strong component of being very powerful. You know, it's something that you'd expect from somebody who's quite powerful. And so from your unique position, having worked with senior executives of multiple companies, male, women, I'm mixing up my words now, female, everything in between. What is it that you think makes a woman powerful?
Ooh, okay. Right. So when I decided to write book number 2, so I did Gravitas, and then I thought, all right, we're going to just small little topics, you know, easily wrap your head aroundable themes. I just decided to write Power Up because I realized that there were two things that were going on out there in the world at the time. There was the Me Too movement, mm-hmm. and there was gender pay gap reporting. Those two things were happening more or less at the same time. And I've got 2 daughters, one of them on her trumpet right now, and then the other one, so they're 13 and 16. And I do not want them to enter the working world and have to go through some of the challenges that I experienced when I was making my way up the corporate ladder and just generally living through life, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to look at this theme of power, and again, in the same way as with Gravitas, find a way of decoding it, but flip it on its head, really, because when it comes to power, the traditional way of looking at power is that you've either got power or you haven't got power. Mm-hmm. So, and you can either give power to someone or you can take it away. And so it's really like black and white. It's like one thing or another. And that can be really harmful, because, you know, it's okay if you have the power, but if you don't, you're not in a great place. And actually, if you do have the power, then that can be incredibly dangerous, because often it goes to your head and you start to abuse it. So I wanted to flip on its head that sort of traditional view of what power is, and build out from that word empowerment, and think about, you know, from a female perspective, what does female power actually mean? And actually, so that's kind of what part of the book is about, is research into what is female power. But actually what it led me to was the appreciation that whilst there are some powers that are more feminine and there are some powers that are typically more masculine, mm-hmm. why should that be the case? So why should it be that female power, you know, things like traditionally emotional intelligence, or the ability to influence, or female intuition, all of those things that tend to come more naturally to us, why should that be the case? Why shouldn't men be able to tap into that too? And then on the other end of the spectrum, things like directiveness and assertiveness and, you know, strength, and, you know, the harder forms of power, which have traditionally been acceptable as mm-hmm. masculine ways of exerting the power, why should that be the case? And why should it be the case that if a woman goes there, she then gets told that she's being bitchy or bossy or, you know, aggressive, when she's just actually being assertive? So my definition of power is that it's actually being able to access that full spectrum, and that whenever you need to, you can tap in, and that we can all learn from one another in that way.
Oh, accessing the full spectrum. That is pretty cool, because I think I haven't heard it described in that way before. I've heard this idea of traditionally masculine elements of power versus traditionally female elements of power, and being able to have a mix. But this idea of being able to kind of tap into the full spectrum, like wake up one morning and decide what buffet you want to eat from today. I'm going to take a little bit of assertiveness, some emotional intelligence, and some intuition. Thank you very much. But I think sometimes we can almost be in this space of either or. It's looking at, okay, I want to take on more of these masculine elements, or, the masculine's good, but the feminine's bad, or the other way around sometimes, or it's imbalanced. But being able to say, actually, they're all part of a spectrum of, not even a spectrum, they're all part of the tapestry of what makes power up. So which ones do I want to play with today, or which ones are going to be most effective for a particular scenario, particular leadership style, or particular scenario? Love it. Such an interesting way of looking at things. Now, that being said, we're talking about spectrums and gravitas and what power is. I'm going to have to get to you then, because I'm going to make this all about you now. So I have this one mean question I ask all of my guests, and for listeners who've been listening up until this point, y'all already know what the mean question is. Y'all been waiting for the mean question. Let's get right into the meat and bones of it.
Okay.
What is it? So if we were to take your life and boil it down, your success in life, your success in business, we were to boil it down into just three core things, be them tools, be them techniques, be the ways of being, but three core things that you would say, these are the three things that have attributed the most to my success in life and or business. What would they be? Let's start with your number one. See, I told you it was mean, but I love it.
So 3 power tools, right?
Your 3 power tools. What are they?
All right. So my first power tool it's called the power pause. #power pause. And I shared it in my TEDx, and it's in my book. And I found it particularly useful during this crazy period, the C word that, we're not talking about. I found it particularly useful during this time of uncertainty and stress. So in general, but I also find it useful in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. When I feel like my power could be compromised, when someone's maybe threatening to take it away, or I feel like it's just ebbing away. This power pause is brilliant for that. So I'm going to take you through. It's got 5 different steps.
Okay, I'm like, please tell me the steps.
Are you ready?
You're just telling me this thing, and I want it. What is it?
All right, 5 steps to the power pause. Step number 1 is to recognize that you've been triggered. All right, so it might be that you're just on a bit of a low ebb at the moment, and you're feeling a bit under pressure or under stress. Maybe you're worried about something, you're concerned about a loved one, or maybe you've just been watching too much of the news recently, and it's kind of, you can feel your mojo dipping. Mm-hmm. So it could be a generalized feeling, or it could be someone says something and it's pissed you off, right? That's you go to that place, right? So firstly, recognize that that's happened. That's step 1. Mm-hmm. Step 2, and we often forget to do this. Step 2 is to breathe. And that's not just like, the breathing that we're always doing all the time anyway. It's actually to take a breath in and then take a breath out.
Like, get very, very conscious about the breathing. Not that angry breathing you do, which is like,
right.
Not that breathing.
Hyperventilating, about to have a panic attack, or actually flip your lid entirely. Not that sort of fight or flight breathing, because essentially that's where you are. You're in fight or flight. Yeah. The deep breath in and out will interrupt the fight or flight, and it will give you a gap. So in that gap, you can literally step out of the situation and rise above it and just notice that it's happening. Okay, so that's step number 2, breathe. Step number 3 is to label how you're feeling. Okay, so So choose the emotion, choose a word to describe the emotion that you're feeling. So you might be feeling frustrated, or you might be feeling scared, or you might be feeling angry, or you might be feeling disappointed. You'll be feeling something. And it might be that the label you choose, you're like, I'm feeling really angry right now. It might be that that angry label might be the most appropriate emotion for you to be feeling at that point. But what the labeling does is it means you're then in control of that emotion rather than that emotion controlling you, right?
Got you.
Yeah. So that's step number 3. Step number 4 is to then choose the emotion that you want to have. Okay. So,
So just remember that bit of remembering it's a choice.
That's exactly it. So the other day, I was having a bad day, and so I was like, and I was like shouting at the family and and I hadn't been sleeping well and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Antoinette, come on, use your power pause, for goodness sake, you keep telling people about it.
This is useful for people to see. It doesn't matter how much you know a tool. If you created the tool, you still got to work the tool. And we're human. We have moments. It happens where we have moments. We're off on one for a minute until we're like, oh, hold up, I know how to fix this.
Exactly. It's like, oh yeah, I've got that power tool. Let's just pick it up. So I was feeling like that, and I labeled it angry. And I was like, do I really want to spend the rest of my Sunday angry? No, I don't. So how can I change that? And then I changed it, and I chose a different emotion, which was actually misunderstood. So then when I labeled it to misunderstood, I was like, okay, well, I've now got the insight to then be able to do step number 5, should I say. Step number 5 is to act. So having decided that it wasn't angry, it was misunderstood, my action was then to go out and make sure that people understood where I was coming from, right? So 5 steps. To recap, shall I recap?
Yes. So the first one is we acknowledge. Let me see if I can remember. Let me see if I'm a good listener. So we acknowledge.
So recognize the trigger.
Recognize what it is and acknowledge what it is. The second one is to take a breath. Not the angry breath, the calm breath. The third one is to label it, give it a name. This isn't to make it right, wrong, or indifferent, just to give it a name. And then the third one is the fourth one, I'm jumping like ahead. I'm doing 3 twice, right? The fourth one is then to choose what you want to feel instead. Or choose an alternative. And then the 5th one is to do something about it. Go act, do something different.
Yeah. Voila.
That's a really cool strategy. So yeah, write that down. Really amazing strategy. So that's your first power tool, the hashtag power pause.
Power pause. Yeah.
Power pause. I love it. And I love that you've got like 5 distinct steps in it, because it makes it a lot easier than just putting them together. Is a lot more, I can see how it can be much more effective than just breathe. Like I'm breathing, but I'm still angry.
Right, exactly. And I'm nowhere different. I'm still angry.
Angry. So your first power tool is the power pause. I love that your first power tool has the word power in it. Only you, Gravitas queen. And then your second power tool?
My second power tool, well, do you know, so I shared this with you before, and I'm now thinking, is this really a tool? But actually it really is. And I wanted to have 3 P's, right? So my second P is perfume. And specifically Chanel perfume, my darlings.
Specifically Chanel. What is in the Chanel magic?
Bloody expensive. So when I was doing the designs, the images for Power Up, I got a fabulous artist to do me images for each of the different chapters. And this one, you can see there's a Power Up perfume bottle, and basically, you know, when you spritz it, fabulousness comes out. And so what I've always done, even now we're in lockdown during the C word, I still wear perfume every day, because when I put the perfume on, I'm like, okay, so it's going to be a good day, and I choose which perfume I want to wear depending on what mood I want to have. So it all goes together. I remember when I I got promoted and went to a different company, and it was a much more senior position. I was like, how am I going to step into this? And I got myself some new perfume. And so part of my ritual was to put that perfume on, and it took me to that place of, you know, my best self.
I love that. And I think it could be a perfume, or it could be, it's almost like a form of anchoring, right? To have something that you can step into. One of our other guests, Beth Griffin, talked about her lipstick, and she's got to get ready. Like, she's like, just get up and get dressed, like get ready, put all your makeup on, put your clothes on, like just show up ready. So I think there's a lot to be said for those, what can sometimes be seen as almost like silly little rituals that we have, but they're not silly. There's something in it where, I'll give you my example. At uni, I was one of these kids that when I was at university, I'm slightly lazy. And so I really just wanted to be as efficient as possible. I've always had a thing for efficiency. So I was like, minimum effort, maximum reward. That's what I'm going for. And so my revision was never months, it was weeks or days. I would just cram everything into a really short period of time. So it wasn't unusual for me to go into the exam feeling completely ill prepared. It was just a normal thing for me. But my roommate used to say to me, Lovelda, like literally before an exam, I'd stop a few hours beforehand and I would get dressed up. And she was like, what the hell are you doing? And I said, if I'm about to fail this exam, I'm going down looking good. Like,
I love it. That's brilliant.
I am not going to fail and look like a failure. I'm at least going to go down looking good.
I love that.
I never failed any of my exams, but it was what I did, because when I got in there, even if I didn't think that I knew something, I'm like, somebody dressed like this should have some level of intelligence. So something would come to me. It just gave me that little bit of like mojo to kind of keep going. So my thing was just to like fake it dress wise until I make it. So I was like, well, there's nothing else I can do now, but I can control my look. So I'm at least going to look like I got my shizzle together, even though I don't have a clue. And it seems to have paid off. Incidentally, she started doing exactly the same thing. I have other friends of mine who hear that story and do the same thing. They're like, I had zero confidence, so I just dressed up. I'm like, girl, you do you. It works for me. I left with a degree.
Works. But clearly it worked for you. And I remember, in fact, you reminded me of a really good friend of mine who, again, didn't really do any revision for her exams. And so what she used to do is, before she used to, like, lives in Germany. So when she was at school, she used to drive to school. So she used to play the original of Relight My Fire. You know, the original one. Not the Take That one, the original one. Like, full blast, like on the stereo, on the cassette. Because back in the day, that's all she had. And she used to go into that exam like, you know, ready. And for her, that was her thing. So whether it's clothes, whether it's music, whether it's makeup, whether it's perfume, have a thing. The word anchor is a good one for it, because it's like, it's your thing that gets you there.
And it doesn't matter if the rest of the world thinks it's silly or contrived. If it does it for you, whatever it does, if it does that thing for you that puts you in that energy, take that, run with it. So yours is perfume. And then, you know, we're talking power. So you went with P's. What's your third P?
Well, my third P is purpose. And again, I guess it's a word that's used a lot. You know, I need to find my purpose. I need to find my why. And, you know, Simon Sinek talking about find your why, etc. And it's integral to everything. I think some people will beat themselves up because they think, oh, I don't have a purpose, or I haven't found my purpose yet. And, you know, people are searching for a purpose that's outside of themselves. They're looking for something that's out there. So my purpose, and it's the strap line of my brand, and it's something that's been there since the beginning when I set my company up, is inspiring leadership from within. And that's got various meanings to it. Partly it's helping organizations to grow their leadership pipeline from within. But more importantly, it's about how important it is for us to turn inwards for the solutions to where we're going. And I was reflecting on this a couple of days ago, and it was my dad's birthday, and bless him, he passed away 3 years ago, and I miss him every day. And I was thinking towards the end of that day, you know, what have I learned from him, and what has come to me today that reminds me of him, and I realized that it was about that. He was a composer, so for him, you know, the music used to come from within. He didn't get it from anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And I think my lesson was that often in life we're seeking something that's outside of ourselves. So we're seeking external validation, we're seeking happiness from outside. We want an experience that's been created on the outside for us to feel significant. If we're speakers, you know, we want applause, we want the audience to love us, we want all of that external stuff. At the moment, with us being in lockdown, a lot of that stuff has been taken away, right? So as speakers, we don't have the real audience, and we don't have access to the material things that we might otherwise be just buying to make ourselves feel better. We don't have that external validation because we're not around many people. So a lot of that has been taken away. And so therefore, it's what we're having to do, all of us, is we're having to go within. And I think that's quite uncomfortable for some people, is to find that place of stillness where we're looking inside ourselves. But when we do, it's actually incredible what happens, because we realize that actually inherently we're okay and we've got everything that we need. And when it comes to finding our voice, like one of the first things that you said today was power around finding your voice. Is when we go within and we give ourselves that space to just connect with who we actually are and what we want to say. That leadership is there, and that's the most powerful thing there is.
Boom. Antoinette, my goodness, girl, you've been coming at us with I'm like, ooh, gold nugget catching. Like, it's been incredible. I understand you've got a cool freebie for us. Like, you came bearing gifts. I love my guests who come bearing gifts. I love all of my guests, but you know, I have a soft spot for those who come bearing gifts. So what gifts have you got for our listeners today?
Okay, I've got 2 gifts. The first gift is for people who are interested in my book, Power Up, the Smart Woman's Guide to Unleashing Their Potential. If people are interested, really happy to send one of the key chapters in this book, which is around what is power and what is the Power Up model. So really happy to send that out to people. And then the second gift is I'm going to be running a Power Up webinar in the next few weeks, and the free gift will be free access to that webinar, and as a bonus to that, a one-to-one coaching session with me. So there's loads of goodies there.
All in the show notes, peeps. Get in there, scroll down. Not if you're driving, that's not good. Don't scroll and drive, but you know what I mean. Scroll down. It's all there in the notes. Thank you so much for your time today and for all of those insights and ways, nice tools, tips, like really practical things that people can do to step back into or reclaim that feeling of being powerful and being back in a position of leadership, which may have been shaken under the current circumstances. It's quite a challenge to kind of navigate around. That being the case, I would like, because you shared so much and it's so cool and I don't want to miss anything, what's the one thing you'd really want to leave people with today?
The one thing is if you want to tap into your power and truly unleash your potential, then it's always comes back to yourself. And what I want people to realize is that, you know, we go on a journey of self-discovery, and we learn new tools and techniques, and we think about all the things that we can do to improve. I would always encourage people, the one thing is to always come back to yourself and trust that you have everything that you need essentially within you to fulfill your potential. It's all there when you choose to tune into yourself.
Bada bing, bada boom. You heard it there. You don't need anything else, ladies. It's all in here. You've got it all. You've got it all. Antoinette tells you so. So it must be so. You have been listening to the Lovelda Show Women of Power podcast. We are all out of time. Let me just remind you, do not miss another one of these episodes. There's a few more in the season. You don't want to miss them. If you're new to the show, you've just caught us, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave a review. Let me know what you think. I'm reading all of the reviews, by the way, and coming back to you on those. So do subscribe, do leave a review. Until next time, remember, it is all within you. You've been listening to The Lovelda Show, Women of Power podcast. Laters, chicas.